So we're here today with Andy Chambers in the Warlord Games shop, discussing his latest piece of gaming magic, Blood Red Skies. So, Andy, what was the idea behind the game? Why World War II air combat?
It kind of originated from me getting addicted to online gaming, ironically enough. I played World War II online for a year or so in 2004, and because it's a simulator, it's a PvP World War II game, and because it's basically a simulator, you have to learn to fly in order to fight, and it made me understand a lot more about air war, because I'd never really kind of read around it that much, and I started getting really into it at that point. Fast forward a few years, a friend asked me, sort of like, if you were going to design a game for yourself, what would you design? And I had some thoughts at that point about how to do aerial combat as I'd experienced it, because on the tabletop it was never really representing what I saw in the air, sort of thing. It was a very fluid, fast-paced environment, and pre-plotting and things like that didn't really seem to reflect the spirit of it. So we sort of lashed together a very, very simple game, and it was actually very nice to play. And I carried on developing it since then, but mainly trying to leave it alone, because it's one of those things where you just manage to get a little bit of bottled thunder and just go, this one's a good one. So, and I'm very fortunate I've managed to find a good partner in Warlord to produce it now.
So if you could sort of sum up the system for the actual game, how would you sum it up for anybody watching this right now?
I always start explaining the game by the advantage system, because that's really what lies at the heart of Blood Red Skies. The advantage system represents like a 3D environment in a very simplified fashion, which I think is a pretty good reflection of how it works when you're actually fighting in that environment, in that planes are either in a neutral state, or they're advantaged, or they're disadvantaged, with all the exciting things that come from that. The advantage system itself, it dictates turn order, it represents vulnerability. Only disadvantaged planes can be shot down, for example, and it gives you a number of options through the turn, and very much the fight in Blood Red Skies is about gaining the advantage, putting your opponents at a disadvantage.
So this initial release of the game is themed around the Battle of Britain, the early war side of things. What particular reason was behind that?
Mainly because I'm doing it with Warlord, and they are a very British company. And in Britain, the Battle of Britain has got like this mythic value to us, really. Spitfires, they're just angels in the sky, Messerschmitts, devils. So there was really no question that when it came to making the game, we had to do Battle of Britain. The original specs I'd done up for the game were for later war. But the game itself, because of the way it works, it's not like putting up Tiger tanks versus early war British tanks or something like that. There are advantages to later war planes, but they're not crushing advantages, and in some ways they're offset by some of the advantages of the early war planes. So it works through the whole war period very successfully.
Okay. So if a player wanted to come along and try and use later war aircraft, they could from the get-go.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and it doesn't matter in terms of nationality or. So if you want to be a Russian player, you can use Russian planes. You can still use them in the later war period, etc.
Oh yeah. They'll transpose throughout the war very, very easily. Plus, you get another thing with the Second World War where basically all of the combatants, except the US, all the combatants found an airframe that worked for them very early on. Spitfires for the Brits, for example, Yak-1s for the Russians. And what they did is they successively upgraded them through the war. They put bigger engines in them, they put better guns on them, more pilot armor, that kind of thing. And that changes the flight characteristics of the planes. But fundamentally, it's the same model of plane. Now, hobby-wise, you might want to do a few minor conversions to show it accurately. But again, so even with us starting out with Spitfires versus 109s, those will fight all the way through from 1940 to 1945 with very minimal differences.
Okay. And in terms of expandability, you bought the initial box set. Where are we going from there if we were expanding it out?
We've got a number of other nationalities being represented. We've got an American set, we've got a Japanese set, and we've got a Russian set coming out as well. And where we go beyond that, it depends on how well the game takes off. If it does really, really well, hopefully we'll be doing more. We may even do some supplements. We've talked about doing like bomber escort supplement to do, 8th Air Force over Europe and things like that, or ground attack, or carrier war. Because it's a very good core system, there's a number of different ways we could go with it to expand it out. In terms of your base game, you get 6 planes assigned. Each extra box of planes you get gives you another 6. And because it's a nice solid core system, you can play with 12, 18, 24 planes aside without too much trouble. And I think that's the big appeal it's got over some of the other more pre-plotty and I can handle 3 fighters now kind of games that are out there.
And because you are Andy Chambers, you're obviously working on about 16 things at once, no doubt, as a game designer. So what else are you working on, or that you could want to mention to us now, that even if it is beyond the wonderful world of Warlord?
Well, Drop Fleet Commander's out now. That's a very exciting one. That's actually moved on from me working on it to a game that I get to play and complain about the decisions that they put in the FAQ and things like that. I'm working on a Strontium Dog game for Warlord. I'm working on some digital titles that I can't really talk about due to NDAs and things like that. God, what else am I doing? Oh, I'm working on, I did a card game with Mark Gibbons called Dark Deeds, just for a bit of a laugh. And we've done another game, a dice game this time, called Dark Deities. So we're working on polishing that up and looking at the next one after that, as well as doing more stuff for Dark Deeds as well. So, juggling away.
And if there was one game system that you've written over the years that you could go back to right now and rewrite and change, which one would it be?
Are we talking full time machine, go back, change everything that happened there?
So, knowing what you know now, what would you go back and change?
Epic 40,000.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was, people have said, oh, I really like that game, and it's a good game in itself, but when we did it, we changed the core system too much, because there was already an existing, fan base for it, and I went too far. Right. Definitely went too far with that. I like Jervis's Epic Armageddon take on it, because he took kind of the best of that and the best of the earlier Space Marine system and melded them together. So if I had a time machine for that to occur, I put it there because I really liked Epic, and honestly, Epic 40,000 kind of killed it. Yeah. And that's always been a deep regret of mine, because it was what originally got me into Games Workshop in the first place was Adeptus Titanicus, actually. Yes. Yeah. So it was always a bit like, I broke it.
Okay, thank you very much, Andy Chambers.
My pleasure, man. Nice talking to you.